Frederick Douglass, like many such slaves, could not recall his date of birth. He estimated himself to have been born in 1817, sired by a white father, who some assumed to have been the former enslaver, and by a mother of which he was separated from early in life. In Talbot County, Maryland, more specifically Tuckahoe, he was raised by his grandmother, Betsy Bailey, on a cabin for the first 7 years of his life. When he was 7, he was taken from his grandmother's cabin to one Aaron Anthony's plantation. His masters, Captain Anthony, the overseer, and Colonel Lloyd, who owned the plantation, were cruel men who took pleasure of whipping slaves. He was a child waking up to hear blood-curdling screams from slaves, one of which being his aunt, begging for mercy. It was safe to say he endured and experienced every harsh thing that you could, being enslaved shortly after arriving there. He spent 4 years on his plantation before being transferred to a farm in Baltimore, which was raised by one of Lloyd's relatives, a Thomas Auld. At the age of around 8 or 9, he was a house slave there to take care of his new master's son. When he got the privilege to learn to read from Mrs. Auld, before she took the beliefs as her husband that slavery and education cannot go hand in hand. This set the seeds of his career of being a skilled orator, a published author, and a leader of the abolitionist movement. He even got himself a book full of speeches from Englishmen before of his time. He gained a religious mindset during the 7 years he spent on his farm. When Captain Anthony died, Frederick was given to his daughter, Miss Lucretia, Thomas Auld's new wife, who quickly sent him back to Baltimore. This was a short grace, as she died soon after. He was sent to a drunk fishing village where he felt miserable in, for he had to go to neighboring plantations for scraps of food to spare. The one thing he had going there was his Sunday church meetings with other colored people, where he preached at. Frederick was lent to two men in his time, Covey, who for 6 months whipped and mistreated him before being strangled by Frederick, where he got left alone for the next 6 months, and a gentleman who was nicer in comparison. Frederick, however, with 5 other enslaved men, chose to hatch an escape. This attempt was unsuccessful, and they were jailed for a week, with Mr. Auld sending him back to Baltimore, as Frederick's life was unsafe with him being threatened by slaveholders in a village after. Shortly after his return to Baltimore, Frederick met Anne Murray, who was a free black woman, also an abolitionist member of the Underground Railroad. She saved the money to buy him a train ticket to New York to help gain his freedom. Officially on September 3rd, 1838, he became a free man. Anna continued to help as she sewed him a sailor's uniform so he could board a train to New York, officially gaining freedom. With freedom granted, Anna Murray and Frederick Douglass married. Together they had 5 kids, with Frederick continuing his abolitionist work. Unfortunately, due to human traffic happening in New York, he and his family left New York in favor of Massachusetts, where he found employment as a laborer.
Over the next few years, he would join many different organizations, becoming a licensed preacher in 1839. In 1841, he would begin making anti-slavery speeches. Frederick Douglass would soon become the most popular African American shortly after releasing his own newspaper and first autobiography. He went on to become the leader of the abolitionist movement as he believed that the African Americans should lead the cause. This led to his most popular speech, What to a Slave is the 4th of July, in which he highlighted the fact that slaves cannot celebrate freedom. In 1848, Douglass attended the Seneca Falls Convention, which was the first women's rights convention. While many people opposed to passing a resolution asking for women's suffrage, Douglass was a part of the group of people who signed. Afterwards, he stood and spoke about the resolution. And this denial of the right to participate in government, not merely the degradation of women and perpetuation of a great injustice happened, but the maiming and repudiation of one half of the moral of intellectual power of the government of the world. He also endorsed Lincoln for the 1860 elections, believing that his views aligned most with his. However, in presidency, Douglass hated how Lincoln supported colonization and did nothing for slavery. After Lincoln held a meeting with black leaders, where Douglass was not invited, showing less than a fair view on equality, Douglass responded to Lincoln in a harsh article, saying that he represents how America would rather support slavery than humanity. He soon respected Lincoln after the Emancipation Proclamation and helped recruit African Americans to fight for the Union, and more important, their freedom.
Frederick Douglass had a very profound impact on the abolition and Civil War. During the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln's approach was very hesitant when it came to slavery. Many abolitionists grew to be impatient with him, but Frederick Douglass supported him, knowing that this war could be a means to the end of slavery. His speeches and activism helped change the public views on black men being a vital role in the Civil War. Frederick Douglass advocated and suggested that colored men should be recruited in the army to fight in the Civil War. Douglass became the main influence behind the creation of the first black regiments, helping to recruit enough black men to fill the 54th and the 55th Massachusetts Infantry Regiments. With his reputation, leadership, speeches, and influence, Douglass aided in the trajectory of the North's position and solidified the Union's success with the enlist of black soldiers. Frederick Douglass's part in the abolition movement was very substantial, that his work and life were very much intertwined with each other. His activism started at the height of when slavery was very heavily backed by the North and the South, thus making his bravery more powerful. Douglass was very outspoken when it came to slavery and challenging one of the most dominant forces in America at the time. He faced violence and danger at the time when being an abolitionist was frowned upon. His notoriety grew in the rise of religious and moral reform by having speeches and lectures and public events to preach the anti-slavery movement to more people. His words and actions helped change the perspective of slavery in America.